Imagine two of the biggest music legends of all time, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, and Cliff Richard, the British superstar. Both icons, both loved by millions. But what happens when one finally reveals a secret about the other? That is exactly what we are talking about now. Stick around, because what you are about to hear might surprise you. Cliff Richard has been in the music business for over 6 decades. He has sold millions of records, toured the world, and inspired countless artists. But what he is about to say about Elvis Presley is something nobody expected. You might think you know everything about Elvis, but Cliff's revelation could change the way you see the king forever. Elvis Presley was not just a singer. He was a phenomenon. From his swivel hips to his unforgettable voice, he captured hearts everywhere. But behind the fame, there were mysteries, questions that fans still wonder about even now. And it is one of these mysteries that Cliff Richard decided to speak about. Before we reveal Cliff's statement, let us go back in time. Imagine it is the late 1950s and early 1960s. Elvis is taking America by storm, and across the ocean, a young Cliff Richard is starting his rise in the United Kingdom. Both were talented, both were charming, but they had very different paths to stardom. Cliff was often called the British Elvis. Many thought he would be just a copy of the king. But Cliff had his own style, his own fans, and his own story. Still, everywhere he went, people asked him the same question: what do you think about Elvis Presley? And here is where it gets interesting. Cliff never gave a simple answer. He would smile, maybe nod, but he kept his personal thoughts private until now. Because recently, in an interview, Cliff finally spoke openly. And what he said is fascinating. Cliff revealed that Elvis Presley was not always the confident, unstoppable star the world saw. Behind the stage lights, Elvis had struggles, and sometimes he felt the pressure of fame deeply. Cliff shared that he realized something very important when he met Elvis: fame is not always what it seems. Elvis might have been the king of rock, but he was still human. Cliff said that many people only saw the performances, the outfits, and the charisma. But few understood how Elvis worked hard every day, how he worried about the right song, the right move, and the right impression. Now, you might wonder, what does this have to do with Cliff? Well, here is the twist. Cliff said he noticed something about Elvis that very few people did. While the king seemed untouchable, he actually learned from others, even from someone like Cliff. That is right. Cliff Richard believes that his own performances and career inspired Elvis in ways most fans never knew. Cliff admitted that when he saw Elvis live for the first time, he was blown away. But it was not just the music. It was the energy, the connection with the audience, and the showmanship. Cliff realized that the king did not just perform, he observed, studied, and adapted. And apparently, Elvis took notes from other artists, including Cliff himself. This might sound surprising, but think about it. Even the most famous stars have influences. Even someone called the king of rock looked up to others. Cliff's story gives us a new perspective. Fame and talent do not exist in isolation. Behind every legend, there are people who inspire, support, and even challenge them. And here is another part of Cliff's revelation. He said Elvis was not always confident with his singing choices. He admired Cliff's courage to try different styles, mix genres, and perform in ways that were not always popular. Elvis noticed that Cliff was fearless in experimenting, and that gave him new ideas for his own shows. In other words, Cliff Richard helped shape the king, even if quietly, behind the scenes. Now, we're not saying Cliff was bigger than Elvis. Not at all. But Cliff's honesty gives us a peek behind the curtain. Fame is not just about talent or luck. It is about learning, observing, and sometimes taking inspiration from the people around you. And for Elvis, Cliff was one of those people. Fans of both legends might find this story shocking. We have always thought of Elvis as larger than life, untouchable. But Cliff's revelation reminds us that even the biggest stars are human. They look, they learn, and they grow. And sometimes, the influence of a peer can be stronger than we imagine. So, next time you listen to Elvis or Cliff, remember this story. Behind every amazing performance, behind every chart-topping hit, there is a web of influence, respect, and sometimes even admiration. Cliff Richard finally shared his side of the story, giving us a fresh look at a legend we thought we knew. Cliff did not just expose a secret about Elvis. He reminded the world that even the greatest stars learn from others. And maybe that is the real magic behind every legend, the people who inspire them, sometimes in ways the world will never fully see. What do you think? Did Elvis learn from Cliff? Write your thoughts in the comments, and let us celebrate these two incredible artists together. Their music changed the world, and now we have a little more insight into what really went on behind the spotlight.